my childhood was super exciting. I think that has had a pretty profound impact on my life. My parents were from a middle income background. Uh, they decided to move to the periphery of the city, or Navi Mumbai, or Bombay as we call it. And growing up, there was this township which was, if you bicycle 2 kilometers out of it, you could hit farms and orchards, etc. And so it was, growing up, it was great for me because I developed a sense of, keen interest in nature, exploration, how things work, which trees would give fruits, etc. And it was a lot of play. Um, School was right next door because at that time the community in this township was very small. So a lot of free time to play, did well at studies. And it was interesting. I mean, we didn't have so many gadgets in those days, and so as a group, we would just get together, have fun. Didn't need any bit of expensive pieces of hardware. I managed to represent my school in swimming, football. So growing up was great. In fact, the theme of exploration continued from there. Because of that, I developed, or I was rather attracted to computers quite a bit. I was really interested in knowing how do these machines figure out what is one plus one. How do they do accounting? And so there was always that sense of curiosity, and I decided to take up computer engineering and actually excelled in coding a lot. One of the highlights of my college days was while my class was learning how to draw a line in computer graphics, I was, coding shading algorithms, like how would a vase look if light came from a source which was over here, or if you moved the light source across the vase, etc. And I remember the professor even asking me to take up a particular class just to enlighten the rest of the students on what I'd produced and how they could make that happen. But thanks to those skills, and the huge demand for tech in those days, immediately after graduation, working for a couple of years in India, I got the opportunity to go to Silicon Valley. I was there before the dot-com boom. In fact, the first flight that I went on was from Mumbai to San Francisco, and I was just amazed by the amount of opportunity, money, the amount of traveling. After that, I went to UK, Germany, Switzerland. Actually, stayed in some of these countries to help clients there address tech solutions. As I progressed, I got a bit removed from coding, and I got onto like client management and billing and timesheets, and not so exciting parts of the job in some sense. And I often saw that clients would replace a manual process with the automated ones, and I'm talking about early 2000s, etc. And I I personally felt that I didn't have the capacity or the knowledge or the skills to advise the client, like, look, this is maybe how you could re-engineer your business process. And so I figured that it might be more effective if I do my MBA and then advise clients on technology from a business perspective. And one of the LBS alums, Satyajit, actually, who's MBA 2005, actually mentioned that maybe I should consider doing an MBA at London Business School, and then post MBA I could even join a company like McKinsey, and they have a business technology office, and there I could sort of continue the same journey but from a more business perspective. I really enjoyed my MBA at LBS. I took the full 21 months to soak in the student interaction, the classroom discussions, my study group discussions and fights and whatnot, the parties outside the school. Completely. I had worked for 9 years before my MBA, and I knew such a long paid vacation is not going to come back. Well, not paid, but such a long vacation is not going to come back again. Uh, Luckily, also for me, I managed to get an internship with McKinsey, its business technology office, and they offered me a full time position. So, literally, by the end of year one, I had an offer from the company where I wanted to work before my MBA. Luckily, I also was on the dean's list. So, in some sense, I was like, whatever I'd come in to do, is already done. So now I still have the next 1 year. And so I actually took up courses which were not very technical, like modeling or financial analysis, and more like soft skills on leadership. There was a one particular course called Creativity and Personal Mastery. I really enjoyed that. Made me reflect a lot on my own. What were my values? What were my expectations? What were my anxieties in life? And in fact, following that course, I even went on to do a 10-day meditation course at Vipassana while still at the B school. LBS has had a huge impact. I really developed as an individual. I acquired so many skills, and like I said, not just in finance and strategy, but even things like networking, which I hated. I absolutely hated networking. But just, forcing yourself to do that, forcing yourself to meet new people, start to have discussions was such a eye opener. I was a complete, you can say, like a tech geek before that. The other thing is also like building perspectives. Love the study group where the question was always either are you going to buy or are you not going to buy, and then so you had to build a perspective and you had to back up your answer. You had to work with your teams. You had to collaborate. You had to consult with them. You had to negotiate with them. So a lot of that was individually very rewarding and enlightening. Also, it opened up a whole lot of doors. Like I said, I in those days, what was my dream job, I managed to get that. I also learned a lot at McKinsey. I spent 4 years there. The learning curve was probably as steep as the B school learning curve itself. Applying it to real life problems, learned to manage teams, managers, clients, understood some of how business works, how does decision making work. And then post that, about spending 4 years at McKinsey, I decided to move back and work in the social sector in India. And again, luckily, with my MBA and with the experience that I had, I was fortunate to, get the opportunity to speak to a wide variety of people to even understand what happens in this space, what's working well, what's not working well. And then finally, I landed up on something where I said that, look, I can help a business grow or scale. Those are the skills that I have. Now, if I can apply these skills to companies which benefit individuals from low income families, then as those companies grow and scale, it'll create a lot of social impact. And it almost took me a reflective journey to say that, look, what did I enjoy in my coding days, and I reflected back, like, what was it? And it just, it came out like, at that time in my life, it was creation, creating something new, creating something from scratch, which really, I didn't feel like when I was coding, it was a job. It just felt like, wow, I'd just do this for a hobby or something like that. I was remembering like my days when I was doing graphics, etc. And so similarly, I thought, what would it be for me today? And it came out to like helping people. And so, and that's what I've been doing since. Let me tell you, I was an introvert and I'm still a introvert. But now, having been through the experience, been through the anxieties, and also at a stage in life where you have children and your leaders within your firm, etc., there is so much learning that we've gone together with. And I've been meeting my colleagues almost every year. Whenever I come to London, I drop them a mail, let's meet up at a particular place. I'm surprised a lot of people show up, but it's good. I mean, so it's less about how many people I'm meeting. I think for me the factor was the depth of the connections that I have are great. I can pick up the phone, ask for favors, and actually have a meaningful discussion where I know I'll be given the right piece of advice. So for me, that's more important, and I've really built that over time. Three things stand out for me. One is follow your passion. The second one is that you need to continuously build skills. It just doesn't stop at the MBA. And the third one is it's all about people. I'll just elaborate a little bit. So, following your passion, the journey ahead is going to be rough, especially on the way up. And if you enjoy what you're doing, you're more likely to stay engaged and stick to the topic or industry. And the interesting thing is, if you stick to a topic or industry, you will become an expert. Over time you will become the expert, and that's how you probably rise up. I think a lot of people focus on position. At least personally, what I've seen is as you focus on building skills, promotions, positions, and responsibilities naturally follow. So, think of this as a starting point, continuously acquire new skills. And lastly, like if I say there was one key skill which would apply to almost the entire batch, would be the ability to hear, understand, and motivate your team, your clients, your stakeholders. I mean, it sounds easy, but to really get behind the skin of an individual, to really understand their perspective and from where they are coming, and then therefore and leverage that to kind of motivate them and guide them, is I feel the ultimate job that all of us are going to have. And I strongly feel that while government, civil society and all are important, I think business is equally, if not more important, in creating good, because a large part of the economy is business, and business has the capability to continuously provide a product or a service with ever increasing levels of quality and with cheaper and cheaper price. I mean, if you think of like the internet, the cost of transmitting a byte of information has been falling, the speed has been increasing. You look at telecom penetration in India, you look at any of these things that, business and technology have that effect. Like as they scale up, costs go down. There is a ton of opportunity out there. There are so many requirements, gaps in the market, so much efficiency to be built in, that there is a huge potential. Thankfully, at least in countries like India, a lot of venture capital money is also coming in. So business, believe in your idea, pursue your idea, have a line of sight on who the customer is, how you're going to make money. And I think finally, especially with entrepreneurs, because they start off with not the big budgets of large corporations, nurturing, hiring and mentoring talent is key, because that's how your company is going to scale. You'll have to work with bright young people, or maybe even experienced, but people who you need to coach and guide for them to be taking on more and more responsibilities, and that's how your organization can scale up. if you're working in the if your idea is about social impact, if you're an entrepreneur in the social sector, then I think you face some more challenges. And I think there, my advice is, firstly, be very clear why you are in this space. A lot of organizations want to start a particular company or want to work on a particular topic because they see a small grant being given out, or they see some sort of short term opportunity. A lot of the social sector related problems like education or skilling or training takes years to fix, especially if you want to provide them cheaply to low income families. And there, I believe thinking long term and thinking about your own motivations as to why you're in this space is key. A lot of it should be about sharing, a lot of it should be about picking up those interesting ideas that are seen across geographies around the world and bringing up those approaches to highlight those approaches to the mainstream. So a lot of like finding the nuggets of gold and then disseminating, like, look, these are approaches on how sustainable business models can be built or scaled up around the globe. Because despite the huge opportunities being cited by the impact sector, etc., like, impact sector being another sector where a lot of money can be made, the reality is a lot of these impact funds barely are able to return capital. So either they are able to create impact or they are able to make a lot of money, but doing both has been a big challenge. So what are the barriers that prevents a lot of the impact firms from growing up? What are some of the solutions that people are trying around the world? How can more people be made aware? How can the future leaders be educated on this? These could be some of the topics that the Wheeler Institute could consider. Over the last 10 years, I have been trying to scale inclusive business models. The first sector that we worked in was housing finance, where in 2006 there were very few companies that gave a home loan to a low income family that did not have income proof. So imagine you're a taxi driver or a plumber or a carpenter or a vegetable vendor, or one of the street food stall vendors. You have income but you don't have income proof, and so banks and housing finance companies would not give you loans. So we created a business model to credit assess these customers, got a couple of entrepreneurs to adopt this business model, help the entrepreneurs scale up. As these entrepreneurs scaled up and started making money, more and more companies entered this space. And by 2018, we saw that there were 22 companies that were now lending money to customers who did not have income proof. $4 billion were given out in home loans and 250,000 houses was enabled. So the point over here is, if you can find that niche business model, so we are not trying to address the entire market, we're trying to find a business model that just works for this informal sector customer, which is profitable, and if grown to scale, obviously that means access to a particular service is provided to the wider community. So similarly, our next program was in early education. And then, what I'm hoping to do is, as long as I can get philanthropy to support me in doing some of the research to help these business models scale up, I'm happy to do those in more and more sectors. And the beauty of this is that while while I'm speaking and giving these interviews, there are private companies out there who have perhaps right now dispersed a home loan to a chai wala or to a street food vendor in India. So how can we get more and more inclusive business models to scale up is really what I'm hoping to do over the coming years, where we're trying to get high quality activity based learning to be given to children from low income families, and this would be provided as a service. So today the dominant way education is delivered in India is through rote. So kids are made to memorize 1 to 100 like a poem, or Jack and Jill like a poem, or they're made to memorize A for apple, B for bat, C for. So kids know that, but if you ask them to read a new word SAT, they don't know that. Or if you ask them to say whether 6 is bigger or 9 is bigger when they're in senior KG, they don't know that. So my dream is that, at some point, children learn by activity based learning. At some point, like today, 4 out of 5 children cannot say whether 6 is bigger or 9 is bigger in senior KG. If you write 4 numbers on a piece of paper and say which number is bigger, 4 out of 5 children cannot say that. My dream is that this ratio should get reversed. 4 out of 5 children should be able to answer that. Activity based learning should be the norm. Parents should demand it. Parents should be willing to pay for it. Like, oh, actually, this is better. My child actually understands concepts. And with a solid foundation, then these children can go on and pick up and learn anything. Because without the foundation, even a high level of curiosity is very then difficult to follow through. So, so I want that activity-based learning business model to scale up. The second program or the third program that we are working on is improving the participation of women in workforce in India. Again, today, over the last 14 years, 45% of women have dropped out of the workforce in India. And this is due to a myriad set of reasons, both on the woman, the family, the society herself not showing up or wanting to participate, and also from the corporates, industry and government, things which due to unconscious biases not promoting or accepting women as much. So would love to over the next 10-15 years see a shift in the other direction. Would love to see that the participation of women has gone up. More and more gender equity is improving. More and more women are being promoted and are at senior roles. So would love to see some of those. Again, impacting the entire sector is never going to be possible. So what we are going to do is we are going to pick 2 or 3 industries and see if we can even in those industries make this happen.